Hi, this is Steve with Me Family Lights. Welcome back. This is a part 2 video following the how to chain pixel props like a champ. In this video, I'm going to show how I built those test power injection, self-power injection setups, and I'll also show you how I would wire the wires right into a pixel prop and go through it step by step. So if you find this helpful, please click the like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. Okay, I'll show you how I wired up these self-power injection test setups. What I've drawn here is kind of a schematic. You have your previous prop coming out. You'll have the male end of the little tester setup. And with the male pigtail, the data wire will come to a WAGO and go right to the data wire of your outgoing female pigtail. The ground wire from your male incoming is this way. It'll connect to a WAGO and go straight out to your female pigtail, and that also will have a WAGO that connects to one of the extra ground lines that's being used for the self-power injection. And then on the V plus side for your male coming in to another WAGO, that's going to go to your female outgoing. And then on the WAGO also you'll have a V plus line that's going across to the back part of your prop. So down here is our pixel prop. This kind of gets the setup just so that way we can tap into the V plus and ground on the signal coming in and the power. Then we'll have our prop here. This female is on the test side, so it's actually a male going to the prop and then coming out female. On this side, you have a male end of the setup. And again, the V plus is coming through to a WAGO. It's going to connect to the wire that was tapped off from the incoming and then go to the female pigtail leaving, going to the next prop. Same thing for the ground. You're coming off of your prop. This is the male end pigtail to the ground, which is connected to this self-injection wire. And then it goes to the female pigtail leaving, going to the next prop. And then for the data, just like the data coming in, the data is going to be going in, going to a WAGO, and going straight back out. So here's what it looks like. Kind of orient this in a way that follows the drawing here. Actually, the male will be down at the bottom. So here's the male end. It's coming in, and we'll start with the data line, which is right here, the white. So the data is coming in to the white, to this WAGO. The white is going out to this female pigtail, which will then go to your prop. And here's the male incoming for the prop. For the ground line, it's coming in, going to the WAGO. It's going right back down here, which is also then feeding your prop. And then off of this WAGO for the ground line, you'll see this black wire. This black wire was added, and it jumps all the way across to the other end, which simulates this kind of bridging over to the other side for the exiting of the prop. That's down here. And then for the plus side, you have your red line going to yet another WAGO. That one goes out to this pigtail, which then basically passes everything back through to your first pixel on that prop. And that ground line also has an extra one. I'm using black here. So red is the V plus and black is the ground, and it's bridging all the way across to this back side. So on the end of this pixel prop, let's just say this is the end, however many pixels you have, your male is going to connect here because that's the incoming going back out. And same thing here. We have the white wire going to a WAGO. That WAGO is then going right back out. You have the V plus, which is coming in here. Let me flip that around. So the V plus is connected here, going right back out, and it's bridged across. So essentially that V plus power that's sitting across here is going through and supplying both ends of your prop. So if this is just 50 pixels on this prop, you've got V plus going in both ways. And then for the ground wire, it's this blue coming off, one of that WAGO, and then exiting on this test setup. And then you can see the black line coming in, going into that WAGO. So this kind of simulates for testing. Again, I'll show you how I wire this in reality. This is a lot more complicated only because I'm using it for testing and I didn't want to cut into these pixels because these are my spares. So what that would look like is you might have a previous prop here with a female coming out, and we go into this setup here, or you can use an extension and have the extension come in here from a prior prop. If you have another prop leaving, you could have the male coming in here for the data going to the rest of it, or run an extension there to go to your next prop. So hopefully that helps with the wiring, and let's look into what it takes to do this without the test setup. We're going to wire up a pretend prop that has 200 pixels, and this is kind of a drawing of what that's going to look like. So similar to the tester, we have the previous prop, it's got the male, the data is coming in. Instead of using all those WAGOs and extra connectors and pigtails, we're really just tapping off of the ground wire and running across and tapping into the ground wire of the last pixel going out the female of the prop to the next prop. We'll do the same thing for the V+. So V+ is coming in, we're going to tap into it, run a wire to another V+ spot on the other side, and that will then feed out. So in essence, you have your prop here, and your V+ will be basically the same voltage running through all the pixels, and your weakest pixel voltage-wise will be in the middle, and then your ground line will be also connecting across and providing a ground path. So the electricity is actually going to flow from the V+ and the ground this way, and then back through. If you're chaining off to another one, the power is going to run through here, and instead of running through all the pixels and back out, it's just going to cross there and return. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so in this section, I'll show how I wire the self-power injection wires and the actual props themselves. So instead of using this somewhat complicated test setup, all you really need are these two wires here that you're going to connect somewhere from the beginning to the end of a prop. And so we'll set that aside. And what you'll need is a utility blade, and that's to separate the wires and also to then cut back some of the sheathing. A wire cutter, I'm using that to just cut the little bits of wire that will be used for the self-power injection. We won't need the VISE-GRIPs. Actually, we will. We'll use that to strip the self-power injection wires. Of course, some solder, your soldering iron, something to help you hold. I've got little helper hands here. Something to clean your solder tip, and then there's a couple different types of this liquid tape to just put onto the exposed solder joints, so that way you seal it up. Okay, so let's just say here is our 200 pixel prop. So if we wanted to connect, and let's just say they're close enough, and we measured it, and we said we need like a 12-inch piece of wire to go from the beginning to the end, what we'll do is we're going to separate the wires here, expose the V+, expose the ground, do the same thing over here, separate the wires, expose the V+, expose the ground, and then connect a wire from the ground to ground and the V+ to V+. So let me set that aside. So we'll just assume that this is our male pigtail going into the first pixel, and this is a female, so that will be our pretend going out from the last pixel. So here are two beginning of the prop and the end of the prop here. I have some spare of the Monoprice speaker wire here, and so as you see, I've kind of cut it back, the outer sheathing. I've used the green and the white for some other stuff, so I have a lot of this red and black left over. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take my clippers. Okay, so I've got that. That's about 12 inches or so, and we'll cut what we'll use to do the self-injection. Set the spare wire aside. And I do like these vice grips for stripping the wires, so we'll go ahead and pull off one on the V+. Other end. And And this is taking off about, maybe about a little less than half an inch, about 3/8 of an inch or so. Okay. Set your little pieces aside. And I just go ahead and twist that end. We'll twist this end. And we'll do the same thing for the ground, just so that they're not frayed and loose. Okay, so we've got our, well, it's more like 9 inches. All right, so this is the beginning before it goes to the first pixel. This is the last, assuming last pixel of the prop going back out. And what we're gonna do is insert these 2 wires here and attach these 2 wires there. So the first thing we'll do is grab our wire here, and I like to stick the blade, hold the back side with 2 fingers and then the front side with a couple fingers, and just push right down in between. You'll get a nice separation. Once you have it separated, you can pull it with your fingers and it'll just nicely come apart. And you can do the same thing for your last pixel. Hold it steady, push your blade down, do the same thing on the other side. So then you kind of expose these wires so you can get in there and do what you need to do. So the data wire we are not going to cut. We're just going to separate that there, and we're going to work on the plus and the ground. So then I take the blade, there's a number of ways you can do it, and just kind of lay it flat and just gently kind of skim the surface there. It's not hard to do, especially if it's not cold. And if you're very careful, you can just feel it ever so much. I'm just doing about, that's probably like a little more than 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch tops. So I'm just shaving a little bit on the outside. And so you can see the wire inside there. I just rip it off. I go ahead and get the whole thing all the way around just to get a nice, good connection. The sheathing is very easy to grab, and you can just kind of pull it off. Kind of make sure you're on camera here. Okay, so this side is good for the ground. We'll do the same thing for the V+. Start it here. If you go a little too far and you cut one of the strands, it's no big deal, or even a couple strands. Just want to kind of expose it here. And we're not cutting any of these wires completely, because we're just going to wrap the self-injection wire around this. Okay. Once you get it close, you can really just pull it with your fingernails and it'll just kind of break off there. All right. Okay. So now what we have is the outgoing with the V+ and the ground exposed. We'll set that down. And we'll do the same thing for the inbound. Okay, so now on the incoming pigtail to the first pixel, we have exposed V+ and ground. And on the last pixel before it leaves, we have V+ and ground. So now what we're going to do is take these 2 wires and kind of got that twisted already. So what I'm going to do is take And you can see the quality of this pixel. This is the wiring here. This top one is the 100% pure copper 18 gauge, and that is our pixel wire. It's not twisted. If I twist it, you'll see how skinny that thing gets. But there's no need to twist it. It's just whatever it is, these strands are kind of loose. So I take the red wire or your V+, if you're using the other two, as long as you're consistent from the beginning to end, and just wrap that nice and tight around there. So you have this little connection there. Bring in the helping hands. Hold this still for us. Get our solder out and our soldering iron. Make sure our tip is nice and clean. Okay, it's nice and hot. And I like to put the soldering iron right underneath it. And then you get a nice soldering connection there. So you can see the solder kind of spread into those wires. That's what you're looking for. And then we'll do the same thing for the ground wire. I'm just going to take it out because it's easier to hold. So take the black, move the data out of the way, and then just wrap it right around that wire there. Okay. So we'll put it back in our helping hands. All right, so we got the ground self-injection wire done on this side. And we will seal it up here in a minute with that liquid electrical tape. And if there was a way to slide on a piece of heat shrink, then I would do that. I think you could, if you had enough room, and it really depends on how much length you have on your pigtail, you could slide a piece of heat shrink over this way towards the pigtail, and then get this all soldered up, slide the heat shrink over and shrink it down. My only concern is these two wires here, there's a little gap in the middle. So sliding that heat shrink over and shrinking it down may not completely waterproof this. So I'm just using the liquid electrical tape to seal that up. So that's the back part of the prop. Okay. And now let's take the other end. And depending on how you run your wiring, if this was a much longer wire, you can kind of fish it through what you need. I do like to kind of twist it a little bit just so it's not too unwieldy or unsightly, just so it's somewhat together. And then on your incoming wire, do the same thing. So you'll take this would be the first pixel down in here, and then here's the incoming. So you take the V+ wire, get them next to each other, just twist it on there. Okay, I twist it all the way so that way there's no little pieces that are sticking out here, so you don't poke yourself and it won't poke through the liquid electric tape. All right, so we'll stick that here so we can solder it. Okay, so I'll take this out of here. So what do we have? We have our pretend male pigtail coming in, and this would be going to the first pixel right here, and we have tapped off the ground and the V+, and then those two wires go all the way to the back of our prop. So assume this is our last pixel or some other place. And you can see our data line runs straight through. Our ground is up here, and then the V plus is down there, and it goes out to your output. So that kind of creates the self-injection wires. Now, before we wrap this up, we want to make sure we seal that end. So we'll take the liquid electrical tape. It's a little older, so hopefully it's soft enough here to get a good bit. And you want to make sure you keep them separate so that way you make sure you get them all the way around. So this is a really old bit. I need to find some, there we go. Kind of coat it really good. If you have new electrical tape, it'll be very liquidy and won't look so sticky like that. That's quite messy, but it'll do. Do the same thing on this guy here. Make sure you get the back side, kind of look all the way around, get it all around. It's all right if you get it on the white data line, it's no big deal. So that kind of is a piece there. Yours will look a lot nicer if you have new electric tape. This stuff has been sitting around for, I don't know, maybe like 3 years. Okay. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for the back side. So here we are on the last pixel, and we will attempt to get some liquid tape on there. Yeah, that's pretty gross, but you get the point. And we'll do the same thing on this side. This stuff does smell quite a bit, so you want to make sure you're in a well ventilated area when you do this. It's kind of like painting. Okay, that kind of shows the process there. Once you have that done, then you have your incoming pigtail going to your pretend first pixel on your prop. Then you have your self-injection wires going to your last, there you go, to the last part of your prop, and your last pigtail here, last pixel here, and then going out to your output to your next prop or an extension wire. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it informative. Until next time, we'll see ya.